Hey guys, this is Brent with Western Equipment. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install a John Deere home maintenance kit on a 2020 John Deere X380. So let's get started. All right guys, before we get started here, let's talk a little bit about what this home maintenance kit is going to contain. Right here we have the John Deere LG265 kit. That's going to come with 2 spark plugs, a fuel filter, oil filter, your next service due sticker, 2 quarts of oil, and an air filter. Now, some things you're going to also want to have around when performing this service. It's going to be your oil drain pan, maybe a funnel for when replacing that oil, some paper towels here as we are probably going to make a little bit of a mess, an oil cap or oil filter wrench. This one here is a cap style, and to run that you're going to need your ratchet with 19mm socket. Then also a pair of pliers here to help when removing that fuel filter. So let's start with step 1 and jump right into draining that oil. Step 1 is going to be getting the oil draining. Guys, the reason we do this first is that way while that oil is draining, we can be doing a few more things with this service. First thing I would do is I would take this panel here loose. All it takes is removing this one bolt here. That's going to be use an 8mm socket to take that loose. That goes right over here. A little hard to see there behind that pedal, but there's a bolt right there. Once you take that loose, this panel just comes right out here. Move that up and out of the way. Just make sure to replace that when you're done. That just gets everything out of the way of the filter and oil system here. So next thing, we're going to reach down here to our drain plug. Like I said, this should just be hand tight. If it's not, guys, and you need to torque on it a little bit, just grab yourself those pliers to go ahead and break that loose. So just spin that off, guys, and as you do that, the oil should start coming out. And then once you've got that loose, just to go ahead and get that flowing good, go ahead and remove your oil cap here. And now we should really have it flowing. Now from here, guys, we'll go step 2 and replace the air filter. Step 2, replacing the air filter. Very simple job. We've just got 2 hand twisting clips here. I'm gonna turn those. That'll make this housing come loose. Go ahead and pop that off. And then right down here, guys, we also have another hand turning nut. That's going to be for the hose clamp. So just go ahead, loosen that up. Then from there you can reach in, raise your air filter up here just a little bit and pop it off of the hose. Then you'll go back on with the new one. Just make sure to get your pre-filter on here. Slide that on, get it lined up to where it does cover all of those paper fins. Then you'll just go right back in, make sure that seats good onto the hose, and then just tighten back up your hose clamp. Just get that good and tight. Grab your housing, put it back down on here, lined up here with your clips. And then close those back down. All right, guys, step 3, let's jump into changing those spark plugs. Step 3 here is going to be replacing our spark plugs. And now keep in mind you have one on this side and one on the other. I'm just going to show you for reference on one side here, but it's going to be the same process on the other side as well. So to start, guys, a couple of tools I forgot to mention in the opening. One is going to be your spark plug socket here. This particular engine is going to use a 13/16 socket for that spark plug. It's also got some rubber down inside of it to hold that spark plug snug whenever you're changing it. And then also a spark plug gap gauge, which I will show you how to use here in just a minute. First thing we got to do is pull this cap loose here. Once we get that loose and out of the way, we'll go ahead and grab our ratchet and socket and start taking out the plug. Just put that right in there. Crank this over right there. Now keep in mind, these spark plugs, have quite a bit of thread on them, but once you get it most of the way out there, you can continue to remove that by hand. Like I said, lots of thread on those. So there is going to be our old one. And then here is going to be our new one. Now, when we talked about checking gap, what we're talking about is the gap between this top electrode here and the pin there in the middle. And how you're gonna do that is, you're gonna take your gap gauge here, you're gonna start on the small side, which is gonna have the lowest numbers on it. We're gonna put our spark plug in starting there, and then start to rotate that around the gauge here. Now, for these particular spark plugs, you should feel that resistance right there at the 0.30. But if you don't, what you're gonna do is take this gauge, push down on that electrode to bend it down. And if you get it too far bent down, what you can do is right here at this circle, you can stick it right there on top and then pull that electrode out to get it to the right gap. So these are gapped correctly. We'll go ahead and put this in. Just line it up, start it by hand, go ahead and get it threaded down as tight as you can by hand here. So right there. And then a good rule of thumb on these guys whenever you're going back on with a ratchet is to go, about a eighth of a turn to a quarter of a turn. So I'm starting right here up top. I'll go a quarter turn there. After that, guys, we're just gonna replace our cap. And then, like I said, do the exact same thing on the other side. So let's go to step 4 here and go ahead and change that oil filter. Step 4 here is going to be changing the oil filter. Pretty simple procedure, like you've seen on the rest of this so far. First thing before we get started with that is one little tip and trick that I always like to use is, since we have that cardboard box that home maintenance kit came into, I like to tear a piece of that off and actually shove this right underneath the filter all the way back to where it is touching the back of the engine. Now what this is going to do is, once we pull that filter off, this is going to help to avoid some of that spillage that we're going to have here down on the engine. So that's just going to act sort of as a funnel to go ahead and drop that oil down into the pan. So next thing you're going to do is take your oil filter cap wrench here, pop that on, make sure you got that on good and snug, as it does like to come off. I think we've got her there. We'll go ahead and put our wrench on, give it just a little bit of a turn, make sure we're snug on that filter, and then just go ahead and start breaking this loose. Once it starts to get loose there, guys, you'll start seeing that oil flow out. There we go. Now we can just start removing this by hand here. Now you're not going to catch all of it with that piece of cardboard there, but it's going to help with a lot of it. There we go. Then you can just drop that piece right on down into the drain pan there. I've actually got a spot here on my drain pan to set that oil filter to let it go ahead and drain out. Next thing we're going to do, guys, is go ahead and crack open one of your new quarts of oil here. What you're going to want to do here is dip your finger down in that oil and put just a thin layer of new oil on the oil filter. And what that's going to do is help create a good seal of that oil filter against the housing. And then before you go back on, guys, you always want to check this entire rim here and make sure none of the old gasket from the old oil filter is left on there, as that will cause you problems if you try to go gasket onto gasket. So just make sure that's clear, and ours is. So we'll go ahead and start spinning on the new filter here. And of course, it always goes faster on than off. So now on these oil filters, guys, you want to get those hand tight, but as hand tight as you can get it. So really crank on that. Then after that, we want to go ahead and reinstall our drain plug here. And again, guys, get that good and hand tight. And then your next step here is going to be going back in with the new oil. Now, this is where your operator manual is going to come in handy. You're going to want to check and see for sure what your capacity is. For this particular mower, it's 1.7 quarts. So we're going to go ahead and put in a full quart here, and then we'll put in a little over half of the next one, then we'll check that oil. This is also where your funnel might come in handy. As you can see there, making a little bit of a mess, but we've got plenty of oil here to do the job. and you've also got those paper towels for that spillage. And like I said, guys, here in a minute, whenever we check this oil, we'll go over a little bit on reading a dipstick. Sometimes I know that can be a challenging concept, so we'll go ahead and go over that as well. All right, so there's 1 quart. Start going in here with our next one. All right, let's see kind of where we're at. Okay, we're not quite half. And keep in mind, guys, if you've never done this before, you do have a sight gauge here on the side of the oil bottle, so you have a pretty good idea. Right here, guys, we should be about perfect. That's about 3/4 of the bottle there, so that's going to be about 1.7 quarts. But we're going to go ahead and check that oil here with the dipstick. So we'll just go in here. Let that sit for just a second, as you just want to make sure that all that oil has made it down to the crankcase. And then next we'll pull this out here. Go ahead and just pull it out the first time, wipe it all the way off, get all that oil off. So what you can see here, guys, is there's 4 little bubbles, and these are to help you see how much oil is in the crankcase. So you have your full line here and your add line here. As long as whenever you put this down in, you pull it out and your oil has filled all 4 of those bubbles, you're in really good shape. So put that down in, screw it in, pull this back out. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but we definitely have oil in all 4 bubbles there, and it's all the way to our full line. So we're good and full there. And that's all there is to that, guys. Now we'll go to our last step here, which will be changing the fuel filter. Step 5 here, changing this fuel filter. Now, usually we would say best for last, but in this case, guys, this is the most messy job. It's also the least fun, but it's not a hard procedure. It can just kind of be tedious. So what you're gonna wanna do first is move these clips out of the way, move them down off of the hose here a ways so you can get this old filter removed. Just squeeze those with your pliers and get them up and out of the way. And once you have those moved out of the way, guys, this is where the messy part comes in. But first thing you probably want to do here is go ahead and take off your fuel side. So since this is the bottom hose and it is going back towards your fuel tank, this is your fuel side. And this is not an easy part, guys. A lot of twisting, turning, pulling, just kind of got to figure out what works best for you. And once you get this loose, this is where your fun's going to begin with all this spillage. So right there, we've got that off. Now, what I would suggest from here is going ahead and putting on your new filter. That way you know you're getting the right side going. Now, what you'll also notice here is there's an arrow on this filter. That's going to be the flow of fuel. So from the tank is where this one's going to be. Go ahead and lean that out of your way. Then you can go to removing the old filter from the other side of the hose here. Once again, guys, nothing super easy or scientific about this. All right. Now that you've taken a bath in it, go ahead and grab those towels there, wipe yourself off, and then go back on here with your new filter. Go ahead and make sure you're getting those seated all the way to the top and the bottom of the filter there. and then you'll just take your pliers here, go back up, try to find that spot on the hose where they were before. That way you know you're far enough down. So just like that. And then your other one here. All right, guys. Now, like I said, definitely not a fun part of it. Kind of messy, kind of a pain, but that is going to be it for step 5 in changing that fuel filter. The only thing that's left to do here, you've done your whole service. The only thing left to do is, of course, clean up. Make sure you replace that panel, and then also make sure you fill out your next service due sticker and put this somewhere by the hour meter on your mower. That way you're just reminded of when the next time is you need to do this full service. There you have it. There is the home maintenance kit installation for the 2020 John Deere X380. As you saw, guys, super simple, definitely something you can do at home. John Deere makes it very easy by putting everything you need here in this kit. So guys, if you need this kit, make sure to check in the description below, as I'll leave a link to our parts website, west-equip.com/parts, where you can get this kit directly from me. Also, guys, if there's anything I left out, anything that you'd like to add, make sure to leave me a comment in the comment section below. If this video helped you out, also make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.